Hey guys, Matthew Saunders here again. I'm going to be doing another virtual author reading today. And today I'm going to be reading from book 3 of the Daughters of Shadow and Blood trilogy, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, the third bride of Dracula, was the wife of a British diplomat in the 1800s, and this book is her story. And so today, though, I'm going to be reading from the prologue of this book because, again, I'm trying to avoid spoilers if you haven't read book 1 or 2, but you really should be reading book 1 or 2, especially if you're this far into my series of videos. With that, I will go ahead and get started. Târgoviște, Romania, the 29th of December, 1989. No one flees to Dracula's castle, not without a very good reason. When the Romanian people finally rose up against Nicolae Ceausescu and drove him from Bucharest, the communist dictator and his wife headed for Târgoviște in a helicopter. When the military forced the helicopter to land, the Ceausescu's commandeered not one, but 2 different vehicles trying to get to the old castle that was once the stronghold of Vlad the Impaler. Something was there, maybe something they believed could keep them in power, but they were gone now, executed after a hasty show trial, one held in the castle. Why were they so desperate to get here? Gabriel Popescu planned to find out. Clouds obscured the night sky, but still the pale light of the full moon filtered through, casting shadows across the stone ruins as Gabriel made his way silently across what once had been a courtyard. Ahead, the Kindia Tower loomed, built by Vlad himself. Gabriel covered his mouth with his gloved hand to keep his breath from coming out in white clouds. Some would consider it ill-advised to visit the place at night, even if one didn't believe in vampires, which Gabriel didn't. Most believed the place was best avoided after sunset. Horrible things had happened there and had left a taint in the air. Most people could sense it, even if they didn't have a name for it. Even though Gabriel didn't feel anything unnatural, the stories made him wary. In his line of work, it was good to be wary. He probed the base of the tower first, trudging around the outside, looking for loose mortar or any obviously newer stones. He didn't really expect such a search to bear fruit. After all, Ceausescu was wily. He had held onto power for over 40 years and had the resources of an entire nation at his disposal. He would not be so careless, but at the same time, Gabriel would never forgive himself for missing something obvious. After circling the tower and finding nothing, he came to a small wooden door. The lock took him only a few seconds to pick. On the other side, a circular set of stairs led upwards into the darkness. Gabriel climbed, sweeping his penlight in front of him. About a third of the way up, he found an irregular stone in the wall, but a brief examination proved it to be nothing special. He was about to proceed when he saw a shadow move out of the corner of his eye. Ahead of him, a window broke the monotony of the curved stone wall. Charcoal gray clouds moved against the inky sky. Just a cloud drifting in front of the moon, or so he reasoned. He shook his head and continued up. Running his hands over the stones, he had to wonder. If any place the tower made the most sense, it would be like Ceausescu to place something of importance in Dracula's stronghold. Gabriel had spent the last several days speculating, running through the possibilities. Gold was his best guess. If so, he'd have to return another night to retrieve it. Currency was another conjecture, though he doubted Romanian livres would be worth the effort. Better to be Russian rubles or German marks. State secrets offered another possibility. Intelligence the Russians or the Americans might pay for. Eminently more dangerous, but enough to allow him to buy a Greek island and retire from the burglary business for good. He had almost reached the top when the shadows moved again in his peripheral vision. He told himself it was merely another trick of the light. No one else was there besides him. Still he continued, a little more cautiously. When he came to the end of the stairs, he pushed open a heavy door that led to the roof. The wind bit into him as he emerged. The clouds rushed across the sky. Around him, the entire valley spread out. Gabriel had another view in mind, though. He scanned the floor for almost an hour until he discovered what he was looking for. One of the stones in the floor appeared worn, as if it had been there for 500 years, a clever bit of camouflage, but the filtered moonlight revealed the obvious difference. the composition was not the same. The color of the tiny shimmering crystals in the rock was just slightly off. Gabriel smiled. It was nice to know he wasn't out of practice. He knelt over the stone and ran his fingers around the edges. There didn't appear to be any gaps in the mortar, but looks could be deceiving. He probed the stones around the rock, seeking some hidden mechanism, until he felt one small stone give. He pushed it down, and then a hand clamped over his mouth. So, like I said, that was the prologue of book 3 of the trilogy. Just a couple of things I wanted to talk about. One of them is the opening line. No one flees to Dracula's castle, not without a very good reason. That's probably my favorite opening line of anything I've written, and one of my favorite lines I've ever written. Really, to be honest with you, I'm actually pretty proud of that one. The other thing I wanted to point out too is that what I explained about the Ceausescu, the Romanian dictator, communist dictator who ruled Romania for over 40 years, that actually happened when he was driven from Bucharest during the revolution. That's where he and his wife were going, was Dracula's castle, basically. The stronghold, the actual stronghold of Vlad the Impaler when he was Prince of Wallachia. And that always struck me, and I wanted to use that when I was writing this as a plot point. And you know, if you read the book, you find out why he was going there, what reason he had to flee there. And the one last thing I do want to point out is, just like for Turkish and for Bosnian, Croatian, or Serbian, I have a very brief guide to Romanian pronunciation on my blog, jmsaunders.com. If you click on Daughters Books and then Daughters Shadow and Blood at the very bottom, there's a Romanian guide to pronunciation, because a bulk of the modern day story in book 3 takes place in Romania, and there are a lot of characters who are Romanian, who obviously have Romanian names. So if you're curious as to how to pronounce the Romanian names and words that you find throughout this book, you can go there. So that's really it for this time. I'm going to be reading another chapter from book 3 in my next author reading. So come back for that, and until then, be careful of the shadows.